Thank you, Kevin. And a little more, you know, it's so critical, and with jails as well, because of the amount of money that you spend with the contraction of the correctional products industry, the smart build, to understand how you need to get the most for your money, the time that it's going to take, the manpower that it's going to take. All those things have to be factored in a new construction design. So here again, that's why it's so important to be here today to kick the tires on this new technology. So it gives me a great privilege now to introduce our next presenter, an individual who, again, a person who I've known for many years. TJ, where are you? There he is. TJ Rogers with Accurate Controls. TJ, the owner of Accurate Controls, at the age of 22, co-founded the company's journey in the corrections industry. With over 33 years of experience, TJ brings extensive technical expertise in security automation system design, software development, custom assembly, electrical installation certification processes, and maintaining security automation systems for the corrections industry, secure treatment facility, and related markets. Committed to innovation and providing the very best in the industry, TJ communicates with key manufacturers to develop an optimum product for his customers, utilizing the most effective, non-proprietary technology and software to the best meet their needs. Since 1989, Accurate Controls has grown to be the leader and largest provider of security automation systems in the corrections industry. TJ, a whole lot of stuff you got to follow there, buddy. Come on.
That's big.
Let's give him a hand.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. I'm TJ Rogers with Accurate Controls, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Accurate Controls, we call ourselves an original equipment manufacturer. Some call us security automation system integrators, and we work specifically and only in the corrections market and related markets. Just a little background about who we are. We started in 1989, like Tony said, and we evolved in the corrections industry. Major General Kevin Orm. We're talking a lot about innovation, and we've seen over the last 35 years the industry change. A little bit about our company. We started as an electrical contracting company in the industrial world and transitioned into corrections in the early 90s. We've grown over the last 35 years to be the leader in the corrections industry with over 1,000 projects and a ton of experience in our company with our employees. We are a UL listed company that builds UL listed and certified panels. And our foundation is offering non-proprietary hardware. That's hardware and software, okay? We do work throughout the country, and we do some international projects as well. And the reason we point this out is we see a lot of different perspectives from all over the country. We have done, over the last 10 years, all the major projects throughout the country, as recognized by Correctional News. All right, so the reason we're here is to talk about innovation in the corrections and related markets. One of the innovations that we brought to the market is called the modular control system. This has been around for quite a few years. Actually, it started with Karen Sickner, who I saw here today, along with Steel Cell and Pauly Jail. And what it is a system that in a traditional approach, oh boy, that really went fast. Let me back up and try that again. So in the corrections market, they build steel cells. And in a traditional approach, they set them into the construction project, and they have to run conduit. And once all the conduits run, then we run cable, pull it all in, takes a lot of time. And then we finally get the opportunity to install the field devices, which again takes a lot of time. And then once all that is done, we can finally set the head end equipment and terminate all that wire. And it's usually at the end of the project, and anybody who's finished a project knows how the project has gotten condensed to a point where there's a lot of work that has to get done. And then once that's all done, we can finally set the operator stations and test the system. Takes a tremendous amount of time. Well, about 12 years ago, maybe 13, we were in a meeting and the electrical contractor said, boy, if I didn't have to run all that conduit or pull all that cable or terminate all those devices, we could probably get this job done within budget, and we'd save a lot of time as well. So we put our heads together, and SteelCell manufactures the cell, and they factory install the wire, cable, conduit, and all the electronics within that cell. And then the truck comes and picks it up and delivers it to the project site. Project is set, all the cells are put in place, and the building's built around it, and one set of cables and one conduit is run to a group of cells, and the system's completed. Seems pretty basic and simple, but that's not how it's traditionally done, okay? So this approach is something we developed. Here's what it kind of looks like. Truck comes in, it's delivered to the project, the back of the cell, and then you have non-proprietary hardware that sits on the back of the cell and is connected through data, distributed data connections, okay? These are the projects we've done utilizing that approach. So approximately 7,500 cells, and the net savings is a little over $23 million. So pretty significant savings. This innovation has saved a lot of money, and we can save a lot of time. We are able to reduce the construction. Boy, this is really kind of sensitive. I'll work on that. So we're able to save a lot of time and money on the project. As well as the damage to the cell during construction, everybody that does construction knows that can be a problem. So that's the modular control system, something you may want to consider if you're designing a project, if you're building a project, if there's a budget that needs to be managed. So Major General talked about legislation, the legislators. We got to stay within a budget, but we got to provide functionality that has evolved in our industry. So the next thing I want to talk about is IP audio. Again, Dr. who's going to talk, I think, a little bit later. With the Indiana job, we want to talk about advanced functions. In the video, you saw an audio communication system that has the ability to play soothing sounds, nature sounds, create an environment in the cell or mental health cell that is not institutional, okay? And so that's what we set out to do. We worked with the company called Audiotech to create the sound masking, the nature sounds, provide music distribution. And one of the other unique things was being able to tell or have the person know what time and date it is. Well, why is that important? Well, if you go to a mental health unit, you don't get all your stuff, okay? So people lose track of what time and what date it is, okay? So it's Wednesday. It's 9:30 in the morning. Well, day and night kind of run together inside those facilities. So knowing what time and what day it is really important. So that's what we were able to create with this company and the functionality that was needed. And that's an innovation that just happened in the last couple of years. And it's not utilized, it was never able to be utilized in the corrections industry prior to that discussion, which we appreciate, and we were happy to be able to do that. So that's something you may want to consider as you're building these buildings. You have the budget to consider, but then you have the functionality, as we just talked about, to create an environment that's different, okay? So that's what we're talking about here today. Another functionality that was created actually as a result of this seminar is advanced lighting control. Again, this is an innovation that we collaborated together with the manufacturers here at SteelCell, Kenall Lighting Fixtures, and Audiotech. And so what we're doing is we brought to the corrections mental health industry a fixture from the medical industry. And what we're doing is we have the ability to dim lights as well as change the light temperature, okay? And not only can we do that with the, from the operator station, AKA the officer can do it, but we can allow the inmate, patient, the ability to do that at their room or cell. Does that make sense? So what we're doing is changing the light color, changing the light level, so we can elicit certain responses. And I correlate this really simply, like at night, you've had a long day at work, and you're tired, you just want to dim the lights, read a book, watch TV, do whatever. That's really hard to do in corrections, okay? It's the lights on or the lights, you know, you have a daylight and you have a nightlight, that's it. So now we're able to change the light color and dim it, and it's added a lot of value. Another feature that is being worked on with Kenall, it's not worked on, they already have it done, is the Indigo Clean Light, okay? So we've had a lot of problems. We just got done with COVID, which I'm sure we all agree that we can't believe we had to do that, but we did. And this is a light that can be used. You can install it in, say, an intake cell, and now we can manage that light fixture so when nobody's there, we can clean the environment through the light fixture. I think you guys can talk about it a little bit more, so stop by and talk to them about it, but it's a way to disinfect the room with light. So you don't have to send your staff in there. If you have somebody that has some sort of cold, whatever, now you can disinfect the room without having to go in there and physically clean it. It's really cool technology, and it's being implemented fairly often in corrections, but I think it's something that could bring a lot of value, especially the intake and processing areas. Here's how it works. I'll let those guys talk about it more, but go see them under the tent. It's a really cool new technology that is being applied to corrections and mental health. I'll just kind of zip through it. Here's an example of what it looks like. It looks blue, okay? So when somebody's not in the cell or room, we just turn that on and turn off the regular light, and it works its magic. That's a good way to say it. Another technology, this is something new. We keep getting asked about technology, and this is kind of another discussion. When we start talking about technology, we get a lot of technology people, IT managers in some cases, that have ideas about what kind of technology should be implemented in a project. I saw this, I think we should do this. Well, sometimes that technology is not yet available. And this is one of the technologies I want to talk about. So this is a new sensor that we're developing in cooperation with Triton as well as Hanwha. And what it does is it's basically radar for a room, okay? Well, why is that important? In mental health, a lot of times you want a free and open environment, right? But you want to know if more than one person is in a room, okay? So this sort of technology can tell us if there are multiple people in a space. It's not a camera. Cameras can do it too, okay? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But in this situation, in a therapeutic environment, it's not advantageous to have a camera in every room, right? So this technology, which is forthcoming, will have the ability to determine, are there more than one persons in that space? Well, if there's only supposed to be one person in that room and you have two people in there, we sound an alert, right? We tell somebody, you got a problem. So this is a new technology that's coming out. It is available, and it's something that you may want to consider. It does some other things, susceptible areas, restroom, shower areas. You want to know if there's multiple people in a shower space maybe. Those kinds of things are important to managers. We were talking yesterday, how do you manage a facility without being so rigid? You need to know where people are, but you don't want to you don't want to be demanding in a management situation, right, Tony? So managing the staff as well as managing the occupants is really important in how that message is conveyed. And this might be a tool that you want to consider to help manage some of those environments. And we're working on another thing, and that's the ability to count the number of people in a day space. And that is the ability to, say you got 20 people in a housing unit. Well, it can tell you, are there 20 people in that housing unit? We're also using video analytics, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, that will be able to confirm that as well. So, video analytics, another innovation. What is video analytics? Video analytics is using metadata. What's metadata? Metadata is information being derived from video. It's commonly known as AI, right? Anyway, so we're collecting information from video. Okay, well, what can we do? We can see speed of a person. How many people are in an area, perhaps? Did they cross a line? Did a traffic pattern get deviated? Do we want to talk about LPR, which is license plate recognition? And I'm going to talk about that. So these are buzzwords that we hear all the time when we're doing design. Bad part. When you talk about some of these things, sometimes people ask for things that they really don't know what they're asking for, and it costs a lot of money to do them. Or they don't know what to ask or how to apply it. And that's what we're here to talk about today. How can we use this data, this information, to create functionality that works well in the environment that you are managing, okay? All within the budget we have to work within. So, one thing you want to consider, that's not Elon Musk, but that's one of our engineers, that if you have a person chasing another person, you might want to sound an alarm. That would be a very important video analytic to maybe implement, okay? Another thing, watch tour, virtual watch tour is something that's being created. So we can have an officer virtually walk the range, if you will, or the floor, and we can disseminate between the color of the officer uniform and the resident or inmate uniform. So now they can hit spots where they're supposed to be without it being so mundane as walking around with a device and going to a location to hit it. Because when they're walking around with a device, they're really not doing what they need to do, right? From a watch tour perspective, you want them to interact with the residents of that housing unit, correct? So that might be a technology that you would use in a video analytic application. Now, one of the things to consider when you're talking video analytics is object-based versus pixel-based analytics. Okay, why is that important? I'm going to go pixel-based would be you're watching the individual pixels of a image on the monitor, if you will. Okay, and you're determining what changes based on how the pixels change. Okay, it's kind of high level in explanation of what we're doing. Where object-based analytics are on board the camera, and it's more detailed, okay? And this is the AI or artificial intelligence trend that we're starting to see. Now, it makes a difference so you have less false alarms, okay? And it's being utilized in a lot of other things, and we like commerce and things like that. So this is how we can do things like we have 5 site vehicles that do the site tour and inspect the exterior of a facility. Well, they're all white SUVs. Well, now we can say those 5 vehicles have writing on the side of them or a license plate, right? Now we can determine that when that vehicle starts at a location, it's the right vehicle and it's not some random vehicle that just decided to drive around your site, okay? So, and so maybe it's a person in a white SUV and they just decide, I'm going to go drive around the facility because I see all those other white SUVs driving around the facility. Well, you want to be notified of that, right? So that's how we're using artificial intelligence to provide good information to the operators of these facilities. So that might be another feature that you want to consider. False alarming, okay? That's a big problem. When we're using technology, a lot of times we set up technology and it offers a whole bunch of functionality, but the downside to it is it also provides the opportunity for annoyance, okay, and inefficiencies. So we want to pick out the right technology and the right functionality that provides the information that is not going to become overwhelming. We call it alarm fatigue, and alarm fatigue becomes a problem, right? So people just ignore the alarm, okay? So we got to build systems that afford people the right information, but it's always, it's not false information, okay? Because if we develop things that are false information, they're just going to ignore it, right? And we don't want that to happen either. So we're recommending an AI-based motion sensing, which is, affords fewer false alarms, okay? Another thing that's important is slip and fall detection. Operators that are here, if somebody's laying on the ground, that's, indicative of an issue. And, sometimes you don't notice it. So this might be an analytic that would be valuable in certain areas. If a person's laying on the ground, you want to be notified of it. And so that might be something to consider. So we're going to transition are there any questions so far about video analytics or radar detection or anything like that? Just, yes, Mike.
How often are you seeing these integrated into design today?
Well, that's a great question. We're seeing that it's being asked on every project. Is it being implemented on every project? I would say the answer is very few, okay? And the reason we're seeing that is, again, we get people that are familiar with technology and they say, we want video analytics on every camera. Okay, that's cool. So we buy a pretty expensive camera, we put it into a location, and what happens is nobody says, this is what we want to do with that technology. Okay, so we bought the expensive technology, but nobody ever said, here's what we want to do with it. Okay, and again, going back to the whole design assist process, when we're able to get involved in a project, we have a better opportunity to talk to owners and say, well, we want video analytics and we want it to do this, okay? And without that dialogue, it's very difficult to implement some of these features and some of this functionality. That's a great question, Mike. Thank you. One of the other things that Accurate Controls is known for is intuitive software. And I want to talk about that. In the development of how the system operates is very important, okay? So developing the software based around how you want to operate your facility is very important to the overall success of the project. So we want to create an interface for the owners that is what they're used to seeing in their own technology. So in our application, we worked with the graphic designers who created, the same technology, right? So we're trying to develop software that coincides and looks like their cell phones or tablets, okay? It offers the same functionality. So we set up software so you have a black or dark background, and you have color or information brought to you when it's important, right? So this development of the software, in our opinion, should be collaborative with the end users and operators of these units. Again, going back to the design assist process, this is very important, okay? To create an application that works for their particular operational needs, okay? Does that make sense? Because albeit 90% of the operations are consistent, there is a 10, 15, or bigger percent of uniqueness to a particular facility based around region or based around their specific needs. The other thing that is available is using the multi-touch technology. So you can do all the things you do with your phone. Zoom in, zoom out, swipe, pan. And the reason we use this is going back in the day when we built graphic panels, the operators wanted to see all the cell doors inside a housing unit. Well, you can't really do that very well with graphical displays or touchscreens. But in this application, you can. You can zoom way out so you can see all the doors in a particular housing unit to make sure they're all secured. Sounds kind of trivial and simple until you're the operator, right? And the operator's like, boy, it'd be great if we could see that. Sounds kind of simple, but it's very important to them. So that's a function that you may want to consider. Non-proprietary, we've been talking about this for the time our company started, and that is how we developed our company, was utilizing a non-proprietary approach. The industry perspective is not always with the best interest of the owner. You know, I've been picking on this ad that was run by a company that's exited the industry, and they said, you know, advanced integration is proprietary, deal with it. You know, that's not our perspective. And Accurate Controls disagrees that owners have to be faced with high maintenance costs and limited options for service as the project goes on. So non-proprietary is very important. It is attainable. It is something that can be managed with the selection of the right products. And again, going back to the design assist, we oftentimes run into situations that the owners, for whatever reason, this is our standard. This is what you have to use. And we're like, okay, we'll do that. That's not a problem. We're happy to provide that system. But when we talk to them about long-term software maintenance agreements, because it's, say it's an IP video management system, well, that software maintenance agreement in a lot of cases can be really expensive. And with the opportunity to discuss different manufacturers, you could save the owner a lot of money long term because it's not a cost or it's a very small cost. So those are all the considerations that we're taking into account as we develop these systems. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much. How did we do? Are there any questions? Any questions besides that? Yes. I can.
How many of those innovations have you implemented on Westville?
Great question. Pretty much all of them. So a lot of the technology that was brought, some of it was created specifically for Westville, like the audio communications. We're working video analytics and video management. That's something that we talked a lot about to manage certain times of the day and things like that. The modular control system was implemented on Westville. Again, the modular construction methodology, that was the philosophy going into it. And so we were able to, that was implemented into the project. So, and again, Mike probably has good examples of what they do here and how that is implemented. Great question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Unique project for many reasons, its scale among them. But a lot of us are practicing correctional architecture in the middle of Kansas or the middle of Oklahoma or the middle of Tennessee with 60 and 80 and 100 bed facilities. Talk about the economy of scale and what the cost consequence is. We're all struggling with these costs that are getting higher by the minute, it seems. How do some of these innovative technologies affect the cost, for instance, on a cell-by-cell basis or overall on smaller, more rural facilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So the question is, can we utilize technology in modular construction in a remote area or a non-metropolitan area? And the answer is yes, and that's really where it began. So as an example, the modular control system, you know, if it's on a small, say 24-cell county jail, you know, the uniqueness of the project, let's talk about local labor markets, the uniqueness of the project is problematic for that local electrical contractor that really wants to bid on the project, but doesn't really has never done a corrections project before. They know how to install light fixtures, they know how to do the service entrance, they don't know how to do all that. But the specialty that is this thing behind me, right? They don't know that. And so when we factory install things, as an example, we are minimizing the risk for the local contractor, okay? So that's number one. Number two, the nice thing about new technologies is it's become standard infrastructure, right? It's network cabling, okay? And that's being implemented throughout the country on every project, right? So all of these innovations apply to a smaller, maybe in a more rural setting, more so than even, you know, than the bigger projects because of the, you know, limiting risk to those contractors and providing more standard infrastructure. So a lot of benefit, and we're you know, saving a lot of money to provide more functionality at the same price. Does that make sense?
A question to what Larry asked. So you're saying you can put the infrastructure in place in terms of the cabling. What's the cost then for software? Is it license-based, by head count? What does that footprint look like?
That's another great question. So the integration system would be the same regardless. So there's no additional cost to the end user, if you will, by virtue of it being factory installed, okay? So now we're just interfacing to that unit. It actually minimizes the cost of the system because now we're just talking to it. Does that make sense? So we're just, there's no additional software costs than what would be applied. Actually, it's less cost. But that's a great question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Yes.
Because I don't want you to say, that's a great question.
Oh.
Again, right? So one thing I want to say, especially to the construction management firms that are here, I know there are some online, some are here in person. I need a microphone? Yeah, you need a microphone. Really? All right, I need a microphone, all right? You know, the great thing about Design Assist is all these new technologies, innovations, as Larry already asked the question, do they cost a little bit more than the older? Yes. Okay, so what's a way that an owner can actually pay for them? I think the best way to do that is instead of putting out a set of drawings and having everyone bid to something and then try to come back and do it later, that never works financially. That's why a lot of owners are like, well, we can't afford that. However, if you did it up front in the Design Assist method, and we used the modular controls to save money, Willoughby's water management to save money, modularity, then the owner has options to put in some new technologies, right?
You're exactly
that was a
right.
Great comment. By the way.
Yeah, that's a great comment. No, Joe is exactly right. The hard part with all of these specialties, and there's a ton of great architects and engineers here today, which we appreciate. But it is hard to put all of these requests and all of this new technology into a project design and make it understandable so everybody can bid it to a certain level. And when we try to do that, what happens, or when that's attempted, what happens is the cost goes up dramatically, okay, for whatever reason. And when we're able to collaborate, we can bring those costs down by certain selections of either manufacturer or maybe, you know, a simple request can change the cost structure dramatically. So that collaboration is imperative to cost effectiveness. So thank you very much for the question. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, TJ. You know, it's amazing. I sit here and I think years ago when I first started in this world, you know, how many people remember the old big turn crank and you had a push button and you hope you pushed the right button. I can remember when I saw the first panel in a correctional environment and was confused. But I promise you, you hear it here. Technology, the use of technology, AI, facial recognition, all those things are going to be integrated into future construction because of it's just one of those things that's inevitable. As we progress, as the science improves, you'll see this technology and it'll be beneficial in a lot of different ways, from augmenting staff to making facilities more secure. So, and again, we'll have all this stuff out back for you to go look at under the tents.